The phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Pam Bondi stared at the screen, already knowing who it was before she picked up. She had learned to recognize that particular weight in her chest, the way her breath caught just slightly before bad news arrived. It was a skill she developed over months of navigating something far larger than any case she had ever touched. "Attorney General, we need to talk about the Treasury file." The voice on the other end was calm, professional, but she could hear the tension underneath. Everyone was tense these days. The Epstein case had become a gravitational pull, dragging everything into its orbit. Careers, reputations, entire administrations, nothing remained untouched. Pam walked to her office window, looking out at a Washington that seemed to shimmer with false promises in the early morning light. She thought about Florida, about the cases she had prosecuted there, about the clarity that once existed between right and wrong. That clarity felt like a distant memory now. "What about it?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Senator Wyden is asking questions. Specific questions. 4,725 wire transfers. Over $1 billion. He has the numbers." She closed her eyes briefly. The numbers had haunted her since she first saw them. Each transfer represented a thread, and if you pulled hard enough on any one of them, the whole tapestry might unravel. Russian banks, victims from Belarus and Turkey, a network that stretched across continents, touching people whose names could bring governments to their knees. And what does he want? He wants the file, all of it, unredacted. He says we're stonewalling. Pam almost laughed at that. Stonewalling. As if she had any real power here. She was a figurehead, a shield positioned between the truth and those who needed it buried. Her title gave her authority in name only. In reality, she took orders, managed narratives, and made sure the right people stayed protected. "Tell him we've provided what we can." That's what I told him last time, and the time before that. "He's not buying it anymore, ma'am." Of course he wasn't. Ron Wyden had been digging into this for years. He was one of the few who seemed to understand that this wasn't just about one man's crimes. It was about a system, a machine designed to protect the powerful while pretending to seek justice. After hanging up, Pam sat at her desk and opened the top drawer. Inside was a folder marked with a simple case number. No name, no details, just a number that represented everything she couldn't talk about. She had seen the list. That was the truth she carried alone. Not the redacted version given to influencers and friendly journalists. Not the sanitized binders labeled Part 1 that made headlines but revealed nothing. The real list, the one with names that could end careers, topple administrations, and expose the rot at the heart of American power. It had been on her desk for 3 weeks before someone made it disappear. She remembered the exact moment. A Tuesday afternoon. The folder was there when she arrived, gone when she returned from lunch. No explanation, no memo, just silence and the unspoken understanding that some truths were too dangerous to acknowledge. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. She knew better than to ignore it. "They're asking about the CIA connection. Massey won't let it go." Pam deleted the message without responding. Thomas Massey had been relentless, reading names into the congressional record, demanding investigations, forcing the FBI to admit they had files they refused to share. He was dangerous, not because he had power, but because he had principles. And principles were harder to buy off than politicians. She thought about the hearing last month, the one where Senator Kennedy had grilled her about Howard Lutnick's claims. The greatest blackmailer ever. They spent an hour going over talking points, preparing for the next hearing, the next round of questions they would deflect. Standard procedure. Nothing new. But as Patel was leaving, he paused at the door. "You know they're never going to let us release the full file, right?" Pam looked up from her desk. "I know. And you know why." She didn't answer. They both knew why. The list wasn't hidden because it was irrelevant. It was hidden because it was explosive, because somewhere in those pages were names that connected to intelligence agencies, to foreign governments, to the highest levels of American power. Because the truth about Epstein wasn't just about sex trafficking. It was about leverage, about control, about a network that had learned to operate in plain sight, protected by the very institutions meant to stop them. After Patel left, Pam sat alone in her office as the sun set over Washington. She thought about resigning, about going public, about burning it all down. But she knew what would happen. She would be discredited, her reputation destroyed, the files would remain buried, and nothing would change. So she stayed. She played her part. She managed the narrative and protected the powerful. But sometimes, late at night, she wondered if history would judge her as a survivor or a coward. If future generations would understand the impossible position she was in, or if they would simply see another official who chose silence over truth. The phone rang again. Another crisis. Another fire to put out. Another truth to bury. Pam Bondi picked up the phone and did what she always did. She answered.